There we go. Hi-yo, this is Miss Becca. Coming to you on a recorded live situation. I just got this wild hair up my ass because I was on the phone with my good friend, Miss Allyson Ballou, who reads human design charts. And we were talking about some stuff because I am in a little bit of worry about where money is going to come from next, because I am in this space of choosing soul, which is go forward with my work or go back and pick something online that I can do for money. My unemployment, as far as I thought, is going to run out. And so I'm faced with this, like, do it now or do it not at all kind of space. And so Allyson just offered to pull up my chart. And in order to help facilitate the work that she does, I thought it was really cool to be able to bring this information to you so you could see what it is. And then I'll give you resources to both of her pages when we are done. Yay, Miss Allyson!
Yay! Thank you so much for this invitation, Becca, and I'm so excited to share your chart with you, because I think I love this work so much, and the things that my clients talk about always, like, I can always see how it relates to the energy that's moving in their chart. And I think that once we learn to add this piece to our understanding of ourselves, because the human design system is so accurate, it really can help, like, clear some of the confusion it has for me. And we've never really talked about this before, so I'm so excited to share it with you.
I'm excited too, because maybe I'll get an answer that, like, I don't have to worry about shit.
Yeah.
Or how to plow through my crap or something.
Okay, so this part on the right is your body graph. And it's like the blueprint of the vehicle that you incarnated into, of your specific human. Each of these centers, each of these shapes is an energy center similar to a chakra, but in human design, there's 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so each one of these centers has a flavor, a type of energy moving through it. The ones that are colored in, any color, are defined. And these are places where you are channeling energy into the world. The ones that are open, the ones that are white are open. These are places where you're taking in energy from the world and amplifying it. So the open centers are places where you can be intuitive about others. They're also places where you can be subject to a lot of conditioning, where the conditioning really hooks if you don't know how to relate to those open centers in the right way. And the reason for that is that our open centers is where we notice the most fluctuation, because in your defined centers you have consistent access to that energy. It's familiar to you, and it's the same all the time. Where the open centers fluctuate, the energy in those centers fluctuate depending on who you're around, also depending on the cosmic weather, like what's going on with the planets and stuff. And so we end up kind of trying to control those fluctuations because we feel them so much. But what we really need to do is learn that it's not us and let it flow through, and let that be like free flowing energy. And then because you have, so the main things, the first and most important things to know about your design is your type, your strategy, and your authority. Your type is a generator. You're a generator because this sacral center is defined. And that means, and these are the 2 strongest centers. They have like the biggest energy signature of what's moving through them. This center is, the sacral center in human design has to do with life force energy. It's like the workforce energy. It's a consistent flow of energy that you wake up with every day, and you need to spend it in order to sleep well at night as a generator. And so, generators and manifesting generators make up 75% of the population. They're the creators, the doers, the artists, the engineers, the ones that are actually here to do. And but what you really be wanting to pay attention to is what you're doing with that energy, like not letting the world hijack it, or because generators and manifesting generators just want to use their energy, and they want to use it on the things that they're passionate about, but they really just want to get it out, because not doing doesn't feel good. So they can sometimes be susceptible to getting hooked into things, saying yes to things, commitments to things that aren't really aligned, just because they need something to do. So it's always going to be about coming back to like what exactly we were talking about, before we got on here, of just like what, what's really in alignment, what do you really feel called to, and not letting the shoulds get in the way and get you hooked into things that, you're not aligned with. As a generator, your strategy is to wait to respond. So some generators, and especially for manifesting generators, who also have a motorized throat, which is another thing we could get into, but like the conditioning of the world is just do it, is like have a 10-year plan, make an action plan, take the steps, like whatever, and make your life, make the life that you want. And that's not actually how it works according to human design. It's all about lining up with the energy that's already in flow and waiting for divine timing and responding to what's in front of us and not trying to make things happen. Only 8% of the population actually has that initiation power, and those are the manifestors, and they're the ones that can just start things. But when generators and manifesting generators try to initiate from their mind, have an idea, and are like, I want to do this, I want to make this happen, and try to force it, they just run into frustration. So the strategy for a generator is to wait to respond. And it doesn't have to be like a formal invitation. It's just that you're not leading from your mind, you're responding. You can have all these ideas and you can be working on these things and you can know what you want to do, but you don't initiate it. You wait for, you can talk about it and you can see if there's other people, if the invitation's there, if it starts to move, if like there's something happening in front of you that you want to respond to, somebody drops a bunch of groceries, you want to help them pick it up. Like that's how you just wake up in the morning and you know that you're here to do, and you do the things that you care about, but you're not trying to force anything to happening. You're responding to what's in front of you. You're letting your inspiration and your passions come through in divine timing instead of trying to orchestrate how it's going to happen. And this will save you a lot of frustration.
Yeah. Well, and that's right the edge where I'm at right now. Like these two choices of get a job or follow my soul. Like I'm right at that.
Absolutely. And I really feel like that's a big part of what's going on in 2020, is that all of us are being brought to that edge. Like the old way, the conditioning, the way that we were told that the world works doesn't actually work anymore. And we have to come home to our inner authority in order to even be to move forward at all. Like we can't initiate from our minds, we can't plan, we don't know what's going to happen next. But when we line up with the energy that's already flowing and work with the vehicle that we're in, instead of trying to force it to be what we think it should be, then we encounter a lot less resistance, a lot less frustration. The not self theme for generators is frustration. So anytime that you're succumbing to the conditioning of your open centers, or any conditioning, is you're going to feel frustrated. So when you're feeling frustrated, especially when it comes to like your life passions, like where you're putting your energy, that's a sign that you're off track and you want to come home to yourself.
So the not self part basically means that's when I know I'm out of alignment. Because it is a
theme in my life
when I am out of alignment.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's what happens when you don't follow your strategy and authority.
Got it.
And then for you, so everyone who's a generator, their strategy is to respond. You're not here to initiate, you're here to wait for divine timing to respond to what's happening. And then your authority for you is emotional authority. This is called the emotional solar plexus center. It's the center where emotional energy moves through. And interestingly to me, it's actually related more to the third chakra than the fourth chakra, which I find, but I guess it's more like those sorts of emotions, about self, about what you're here for. But human design talks about like the huge emotional wave that's moving through there. And so emotional authority, that means that, so when we're talking about inner authority, like the conditioning of the planet is mostly that we should be making decisions from our mind. And actually, that's nobody's inner authority, not since 1781. Back in the 1700s, we had a format with 7 chakras, 7 centers, and we were navigating from our minds, which is why society is set up like this. But nobody's made that way anymore. We don't have to figure it out with our minds. We have an inner authority that we can trust. But you have to go to the right one. For you, it's emotional. For you, you'll get these gut knowings because you also have this sacral, the defined sacral center. So you'll get that like burst of like, yes, that, yes, that, yes, that.
Yeah.
But you want to wait 2 to 3 days to make any major decisions for that emotional wave to move through. So the energy that's moving through the emotional center has like a 2 to 3 day cycle, and it's different for each person. You'll kind of learn like what your cycle is. And so if you make decisions about, connections, jobs, where to live, like the big things in life, people, friendships, colleagues, and romantic relationships, or where you're going to live or where you're going to work. Um, if you make you need to give yourself 2 to 3 days, because if you make those decisions from the high end of your wave, when you're in like the high end of your emotional vibe, you
Oh,
can end up saying yes to things that later you're like, I don't actually have the energy for that. And if you make decisions from the low end of your wave, you can end up saying no to things that you're like, oh God, I wish I had done that. But if you wait the whole 2 to 3 days and you're not doing anything in that 2 or 3 days, although your mind probably will be mulling it over because that's what minds do, but it's not actually helping you decide. You're just waiting that time to get to the emotional clarity. So you want to get really good at telling people like, let me get back to you. Let me get back to you. And creating relationships and situations in your life that give you time to get to emotional clarity
mhm.
before you decide things. You're not here to be certain, to have this analytical clear understanding of what you're doing and why. You're here to follow what feels right. And not everyone can do that, because I have an open emotional center, and if I go with what feels emotionally right, I'm getting heavily influenced by the emotional energy of everyone around me. So, but because you have it as defined, that's the authority that you can trust, and
Yes.
it's the strongest center there. So if your emotional center is defined, it's always your authority center. And so it's never going to be about like a war between these two centers, because this is also an authority center for a lot of people, have sacral authority. It's just that like your gut knows a lot about what you have energy for, but you also need to know where you are emotionally with it. And if you're trying to say yes to stuff your gut wants to do, but your emotional energy is not aligned with, you're just going to end up committed to things that you don't actually feel aligned with, that you then either have to go through with or get out of.
Okay, so what you just described in that piece feels very true for right where I am right now. Like
Mhm.
my gut is going, I want to take action. I'm excited to take action. And
Yes.
my emotions are like, I'm inward right now. I'm going
Hmm.
through some emotional change. No, we're just going to sit here. So this is like,
Exactly. I know. That's why I wanted to look it up when we were talking about it. Like it's right where you're
so
where
what do
you're
I do
at.
with that? Like, I just have to sit and wait for my emotions to come around? Is that? And
Hmm.
then when they align up, then it move.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all about trusting and reconditioning your mind to know that there's always time, that there's that like anything that you are here, that you are designed to be a part of, there's going to be time for you to get emotional clarity. Like that's how it works. You are being factored in, and your whole truth and your path and your passion and everything you're here for is factored into the cosmic intelligence of what's happening. So it's okay for you to wait to respond. It's okay for you to wait until you
So,
get emotional clarity. And that
so,
doesn't mean like that you can't clean your house unless you think about it for 2 days,
right.
or that you can't, you can do whatever you want to do. But the real key, I think, here is that um the things that you care about the most, the things that you're most invested in, if you try to move on them before you have emotional clarity, you'll get you may encounter frustration, you may just have divine timing issues, um or you may later just find that you're not emotionally aligned with it if you jump to the gun. And so it's just it's not that what your gut is telling you is wrong, it's just that it doesn't actually know the timing. This one knows the timing.
Oh,
It's,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's okay. That actually fascinates the living shit.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's just about coming back to that really, and it is like an adjustment, because the world doesn't teach us to take our time to make decisions. They want to know now. The people want to know now. You feel like you're going to lose opportunities if you take the time, but the people who are actually aligned for you, are correct for you, the options that are right for you will have that time.
I'm
Will
in the
be,
right time.
because they're going to be in alignment with that divine timing too.
God, that's so crazy. Okay. So here I am
Yeah,
in
and
this.
so it's
It's just fear that's pushing me to go, oh, I got to hurry up and figure it out. But if I'm waiting, I'm going to feel when the right opportunity hits me and then just to go and it'll work itself, which is pretty much what's been happening this whole time.
Right, exactly. And from what I don't have emotional authority, but from what I understand from talking to people that do, it's like you're like mulling it over, whatever, trying not to think about it or whatever's going on, like for that 2 or 3 days, and then there's just this like click, and there's this like emotional click that comes
Yeah.
in, and you
Yeah.
just don't have to analyze it. Your mind stops, like
Yeah. It just
because
goes.
it was never doing anything in the first place.
Yep.
It's just filling the space until the clarity comes in.
Oh, that's a good, wow. That's a good way to look at that. Wow.
Yeah. This
Wow. Oh my God.
bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mind is just filling the space. That's interesting until
Yeah.
clarity gets there.
And then you have a completely open head center, this triangle on top here.
Mm-hmm.
So these little numbers and circles here, these are gates, and that's like more advanced. You don't really want to like get into that until you have a really good feel for your strategy and authority.
Okay.
But I will but because you have no gates defined here, there's no circles on these numbers, and this
Mm.
one too. That means that you have no consistent energy. It's just like it's an open center, but it's a completely open center, so it's even more susceptible to the energy of other people.
Mm.
Slash more intuitive. It's like they are actually gifts once we learn to live in the right relationship with them, but until then, this one can feel like pressure. So
That's
this one,
interesting because that one has literally just been shifting for me this week. So it's very,
yeah, the green one is more like mind in the like sixth chakra kind of mind energy, and then this one has to do with like questions and inspiration. So like ideas that come to you or things that you want to know. You don't like it can create pressure on you to like answer that or do
mm,
act on those things. And the thing is that some of that is coming from people around you, people you may not even know, people just in the apartment next door, or that you passed on the street, or it could even be from the planets depending on what the transits are at the time.
so
And so
energetic.
if you're choosing how to direct your energy through the day because you're caught up in this need to answer questions and get to the bottom of things, then
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be paying attention to your true energy. You're being influenced by your open center, by other people's inspirations and questions. Some of those questions and inspirations could very well come through what you're doing, but you're not going to relate to them from this center because this center it doesn't have information for you about you. It has information for you about other people. Open
Mm,
window where you're taking in the energy from the world, where you can smell it and
interesting.
see it and taste it, what's coming
Okay.
in. And so you want to always be cleaning it out, always be letting go of all of the energy in your open centers. Just imagine like discharging it, letting it go. It's not mine. It's not a problem. Just unhook from it. It's always going to kind of be there, but it's a feeling, that pressure feeling to the bottom of things is not yours. It's just like the pressure itself is part of what it feels like to be you, and it's not something that you need to fix.
Okay.
This center is the center for value
Okay.
and willpower. And so it's like your sense of value of yourself fluctuates depending on who you're around. Like a lot because it's open. And so it's really important for you to be around people that value you and who value you for who you really are for real reasons. Because
Then
and for you to know that again it's not something for you to navigate your life by. Like if you're feeling like you have something to prove, something that you have to, if that voice is getting in there and telling like, no, I can't wait for divine timing, I can't act on what I want to do because I have to prove this, like watch for that voice because the conditioning comes in there for
got
that.
it. Yep.
But you're not here to have a consistent sense of how other people value you. You're
Right.
here to be wise in your defined centers, and you're here to be wise about how other people value themselves. Like you can feel into other
Mm-hmm.
people's sense of value of themselves, but you don't let that influence your decisions or how you move through life. You just use that as information about the world.
Okay.
This is the splenic center. This is the center for instinct
Oh.
and like in the moment awareness, in the moment. It's a fear center. It's like that instinct energy when somebody like drops a knife and then jumps out of the way before they
Yeah.
even know
Yeah.
they dropped it, kind of
Fight or
thing.
flight stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so This one can be a little uncomfortable to have undefined, because um, when you're alone with yourself and your own energy, there can just sort of be this, and I don't have this, but this is what I understand. You can tell me what it feels like, but that there's just this sort of like, I don't really know if I'm okay. I don't know if everything's okay. There's not this really like ongoing sense of okayness, and it's not like a, when it fires off with fears, you don't know if those fears are specific to you because you're taking in energy from other people. So it can be confusing. It can be a place. So what happens with this center, if you're not living in right relationship with it, is you hang on to relationships too long, you hang on to jobs too long, you
Mm.
hang on to things. Anything where you got some kind of structure in that center is
Yeah.
hard to let go of, even if you know you need to.
Okay, so
And
that's
again,
where I'm at now with the
mhm,
job thing that wants to pull me back in.
yeah,
Oh, that's
it,
interesting. Okay.
exactly. And it's just again about knowing that this is not a center for you to get guidance from. It's wisdom about the world and about other people, but that sense of okayness, you don't want to guide your life trying to find that. It will just
Right.
naturally be there. The right people will fill that energy in for you when you follow your strategy and authority, when you wait to respond and then make decisions that are aligned with your emotional clarity.
So then this is really all about getting into like how to flow with my own human design, like the way it's pointing it out and the
Exactly.
tools that it uses. It's how to be in flow, how to get in flow, and how to notice when I'm not in flow to put me back in.
Yes. And I would go so far as to say, this is what's actually already happening. This is how your vehicle is actually moving through the world, while your mind sits there and makes up stories about whether or not it's doing right and what it should be doing differently and all of those kind of things. Like, especially for you, like, I don't think you're actually off track very often. You're just sometimes questioning why this is the right track, you know?
Sounds
Yeah.
pretty right on.
Yeah. And so it's just about knowing yourself not as your open centers but as your defined centers. You have a defined root center, which is adrenaline energy in human design, which is the
Yeah.
ability to like put the gas on when it needs to go and go until whatever needs to get done is done and then
Yeah.
stop when it's done. And you can trust that. I can't. I have an open root center and I constantly feel like I have to be on high when I don't really, because it's not mine. But you can trust it. You can trust your sacral energy, that workforce energy, that inspiration that I want to do, I want to make a contribution energy that you wake up with every day. That's real. That's you. Your emotional energy is trustworthy, is you, is defined. This is the center for self. It's called the ego center. And so it's um, direction and lovability
Yeah.
and sense of identity, like who you are, and that's consistent for you. You're not like being influenced heavily by who, by, you know, you have a solid sense of yourself regardless of who you're around, so you can trust that, not for decision making but just, you know, it's that's consistent. You have a defined throat, so you're here to speak and share in divine timing when it's emotionally aligned.
Mhm.
And you have a defined mind, so you have a consistent and reliable perspective and way of thinking of things. And so those, you know, when you're coming back to your center, when you're doing your energy healings, you're filling these centers and letting these ones empty, because these are the, you want them to be free flowing, empty windows that fresh energy can come into. You're not holding on to any of it. But these are the centers where you are coming through, where the real Becca is coming through your vehicle into the world, the defined centers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then
And
what's the incarnation cross thing that's on there?
that is your incarnation cross is has to do with where the sun was in relation to the earth when you were born.
Ah,
There's a bunch of different ones that, so what we'd have to look it up, but it basically is your is your life purpose, sort of, is if you get yourself out of the way and let your vehicle line up with life, this is what it's about, this is where it's going. So
oh,
I have a website that has those. We can look it up in a second if you want. And then the other big thing to know too is your profile.
oh, okay.
Those three things, the body graph, the incarnation, and the profile, make up kind of the three pieces of of your vehicle. And so your profile is, it's just another, it just also has to do with like more specifically where the planets were like within the gates, like
Hmm.
and so it gives more information as to sort of like the personality and character of you.
Oh, okay.
So like there's lots of emotional generators, but a 4-6 emotional generator is very different from a 5-1 emotional generator.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a 4-6, the 4-6, the first number is conscious and the second number is unconscious. The first number is from your personality numbers over here, which is your soul, your higher
Mm,
self, the being that's here. And then these numbers have to do with the body, the vehicle. So the 4 is called the opportunist, but it's actually more, I would more call it a networker. And
okay.
um it's about your network. It's about like friendships are very important. Having a network of people, whether they're colleagues or clients or friends or family, whatever, it's a very essential part of who you are. And it's another reason why it's difficult to leave jobs and relationships before you know where you're going next,
Mm,
because it's literally fundamental to who you are, how you're connected to other people. And
mm,
so it has a big, um all of the people that you're connected to, you like it best if they feel like friends, if they're
yeah,
people that.
that's so true.
I'm a 4-6 too. And then the 6 is the role model. So this is unconscious for you. So it's more something you can observe in yourself than maybe feel. But the role model has a 3-part life path.
Hmm,
And so the first, from 0 to 30, from birth into, or 28, your first Saturn return, whenever it was,
mhm,
is a period of kind of experimenting with life, like trying this out, trying that out, and kind of bumping into it, usually with a fair amount of discomfort, like not always liking what you experience.
mm,
And then somewhere around, because 4-6s are a little sensitive, and then somewhere around 28 to 30, you go up on the roof, as they call it, and you kind of step back from society in some way, from the game, from the whatever, and you're between 30 and 50, you're more learning about people and about the world and about whatever it is that you're here to know, from observation, then not as hands on. So I don't know how you relate to that. Do you see that in your life? Is there a way that like around 30 you kind of
God,
went up on the roof, took a more like observing?
yeah, I
You
would
see
say
that?
that. I think I probably did. I mean, I don't know when. I'm trying to remember when the hell I was 30. Like, what?
Right.
I stuck at the time thing, but I know
Yeah,
that's
it's
when
okay.
I moved up to LA when I was 27. So I think
Yeah.
probably by the
Oh,
time
there
I
you
got
go.
into like Lionheart Institute, I was somewhere
Oh my
around
god.
30.
That's so cool.
So it makes sense that that's when I was doing
Mhm.
all of my work on myself and how I affect others and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think like even the fact that we were at Lionheart is like, choosing to be like, okay, well, that was interesting. Let's go see what else life has to
Yeah.
offer. You know what I mean? Like going that more alternative
Which is
route.
where I'm at now. And for people who are watching this that don't know, Lionheart was an energy healing, transpersonal energy counseling school that Allison and I went through together and trained.
Yes, yes. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And then role models, when they turn 50, blossom as role models. And so at that point, and it's role model, like they call it like leaders without followers. So
Nice.
what you're really leading people is how to be, like you're showing people who you are and
Yeah.
you're living your authentic self, and by you doing that you teach other people
That's
that it's
exactly what I'm
okay
doing right now.
for
So
that,
it makes sense. And I'm going to be
right?
50 next year for people who don't know that. So that makes absolute sense.
And I can even see and feel like the closer you've gotten to 50, this rising that's been happening. And that's what they say, that like at 50 people, and I think it's like something to do with Chiron. So exactly whenever
Oh,
Chiron comes around in your
yeah.
chart is
Chiron
when you
return. Yep.
blossom as a role model. So if in the 50 years leading up to then you've been.
Yep. I hit my Chiron return like last year, I think.
Oh really? Oh, so you might already be over the hump, like
I think so. That makes
yeah. And so, and it just becomes this time when like people it just gets a lot easier to attract an audience. Like you don't even try sometimes. Like people are just like, oh, what's she saying? I want to hear what she has to say. You know, like you just become this magnetic kind of
Well, interesting.
force. And
I'm
it
happy
has,
to be a force.
yeah, and it's like of you, you know, and it's
Yeah.
different than the fives. The fives are like prophets. They're here to like speak from a stage, and they have all kinds of problems with projections and stuff, so it's like a
Mm,
whole nother thing. But role models are more, it's not that role models don't end up on the stage, like you can, but it's not like you're not teaching people how to do their life, you're showing them how you did yours. You know,
yeah.
you're a leader in just in being yourself. And that's so true for you. I so feel that and see that.
That is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
This is
No,
really cool.
yeah. It is. It's really cool. And so and it's really simple too, is that it's all about coming back to your strategy. Like all of these things, the open centers, the profile, everything we've talked about, it all comes back to your strategy and authority. If you commit to not trying to initiate and to waiting for that emotional clarity and waiting for divine timing and responding to what's in front of you, which you've been doing, right? Like without even knowing
Yeah.
this, then um, you encounter more synchronicities, you encounter a lot less frustration, you get to this signature of satisfaction with your life.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then yeah, it's just like you fall into the flow of the universe. And like I said, it's like actually kind of what's already happening for most people. Like your body's already doing it because that's what it does. It's
Yeah.
mechanics, you know, but this makes it so much easier not to fight with it, not to argue with it. And but it's a challenge, and this is why like I feel my favorite thing is to merge this with the energy healing work that we learned at Lionheart, because everything we've talked about so far is a cognitive conversation. We're all up here, you know, and to really tune into what these energies feel like and when you're being influenced by them, because it's easy to sit here and say and like that I'm going to wait to respond and only align with what my inner authority says, you know.
Yeah.
But the reason we're not already all living our strategy and authority is because the world has convinced us that it's not safe, because we are conditioned to this other way of thinking. And so in to come home to your strategy and authority, to come home to who you really are, you do have to walk through some pretty heavy curtains of fear, which
Yeah.
is as what we were talking about this morning.
Yeah.
I've been living my design for 7-8 years now,
Oh, wow.
and it really does like get easier slash harder. Like it it is really hard for me to get my body to do the old way anymore. Like anytime I'm like, ugh, it would just be easier to just what I can't. Like I can't. I won't. I'll procrastinate. I'll whatever. I'll have these fights with myself. You know, I'll do sessions around what's wrong with me. Why can't I get myself? And it's just no. It's just I know now. I've spent too much time on this. And they say that when you start living your strategy and authority, like your cells actually start to change. And
Oh,
after 7
wow.
years, yeah, there's like more of a biological alignment that happens.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like and human design also says that in 2027 we're leaving the cross of planning and moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So we've been in the cross of planning for over 300 years,
Yeah, that sounds about
or
right.
like 258 or
I don't
something,
want to wait till 27. I want to
right?
go.
Yeah. And I've been reading about this for like 9 years or whatever, and they say like when we leave the cross of planning, like you won't be able to plan anything. There won't be bus schedules, there won't be this, there won't be that. And I'm just going, what do they mean? Like, is this abstract? Is this, but now 2020, like it's already happening.
Yeah.
And it started happening exactly 7 years before 2027. February 2027 is when we leave the cross.
Oh,
So I
that's
do really
fascinating.
feel like this 7 year period from now till 2027 is
Yeah.
our chance to get rid of the conditioning, to come home to who we really are, to retrain our own brains, our own minds, to trust this so that it's not so fucking scary, so that we can really step into this new phase, you know?
Oh, that's so great.
And I really think, yeah, that's what's happening to us.
I think that sounds absolutely fabulous. Like I'm fucking ready for that
Isn't
shit.
it cool? I want to look up your incarnation cross while we're at it here.
Okay, you look
Let
up
me
that.
pull it up.
And for people on Facebook, I'll put these in the comments below too, but you can find Allyson on Facebook at Allyson Ballou. What's the witch part?
Healing Witch.
Healing Witch. Allyson
Yes.
Ballou, Healing Witch, and it's is it 2 L's, right?
Yeah, Allyson, Ballou, Ballou. Call me Healing Witch. That's my page. And then I also have a Facebook group called HumanDesign with Allyson, where I'm sharing some of the basics and people can ask questions, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And obviously I offer readings.
Yes.
Right, I'm looking up your cross here. Right angle cross of explanation.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sometimes these are a little weird at first. You're like, what? But we'll see how it goes. 2343. Okay, right angle cross of explanation. You are here to vocalize individual expression. Because it is individual expression, it is new to the collective, and your audience may act as if what you are saying is strange or bizarre. You therefore have built-in energy to repeat what you have said or done over and over again. It is through this process of repetition that the rest of humanity, or at least your family and friends, begin to become familiar with what you are expressing. An illustration of this energy is popular fads. Someone with individual energy does something new, wears a new type of shoe or sports or a new hairdo. At society's first reaction is, that's just weird. But after seeing it 5, 10, 20 times, other people start doing it and it catches on. You are here to introduce us to new ideas. That is so you, Becca.
So me. It's so, and can I tell you too, the weird little, like, up against my own edge, like, aside from the, like, money, what am I going to do thing that I up against this week was embodiment of my full unleashed, uninhibited expression. Like, it literally came up, and I was having this conversation with one of my other girlfriends yesterday because there's always been so much shit in my way, and it was always something that I was like, I didn't think it would ever come to the point where I could actually embody it so much, you know, in my past life stuff, because I believe in that, that it's like the oh, here, let me put that up. That it's like I buried that shit. Like, I ripped it out of myself and I killed it. I had thought I had killed it off. I was content with that. Like, I'm never going to have it stolen from me again. It's dead. It's fine. Yet there's that longing in my heart that always wanted it. And then now I found out, oh shit, it's not dead. It's been buried. And so I had to, like, let go. That's where I'm at right now. Literally, is letting go of the idea that I'm hanging on to, that it is dead, in order to express it. So I feel like that, I was telling her yesterday, I was like, it feels like there's this angel standing like this close to me, like nose to nose, staring at me. And she's like, all you have to do is put your hands on my face. And I'm sitting here like this, like, I won't move my arms. I won't move my arms, but there's nothing in between me. And I can feel that the moment I'm like, go do this, the impact that is going to have with what I want to bring in the world is going to shift a lot of stuff for me.
Absolutely.
So,
and everyone else.
Emotional alignment thing is, that's the piece I'm waiting for to move. It's really fascinating. So I love that that's in there, because I always tell people, I'm like, mine was defined as an energy term. Expression would be my term. Expression of my truth.
It's there, and that's literally the gate. That's so cool. The cross of expression. You're so good at knowing yourself. That's so it's so cool. Yeah, I mean, like a year ago, year and a half ago, whatever. Like, even though I'd been reading this and studying it and teaching it or whatever, when it, you know, and I been living it, you know, like really choosing, but when it gets right down to the nitty gritty, sometimes it's hard, you know, and as a projector, my strategy is to wait for the invitation. So it's even more waiting. I have to actually wait for people to ask.
Yes.
Like you did today. And so it's scary. And I mean, I was driving 4 hours a day to get my kids to and from school. I was living in an apartment that was completely full of mold and couldn't get the landlord to do anything about it. I was taking money from my parents, but it came in order to pay rent for that crappy apartment, but it came with all this judgment and lectures, and you're not following the conditioning of society, you know. And when we really hit a breaking point of like, and working at a job where I didn't feel recognized or you know, respected or valued, and when I really was willing to start like step into my authority and start, even when it came down to those like building blocks of life, you know, it got so scary. But as I've been like living my strategy, all the things that are not aligned with me just like naturally fall away, and solutions that I didn't even know were possible start to show up. And like things that I had that I wanted for myself that felt like 10 years out that I'd have to create. Like, how am I ever going to, you know, escape this city life and go find a place like out in nature where I can live, or that it felt like I have to go through this whole life first. I have to raise my kids, I have to build my career, I have to make enough money, I have to whatever. But the universe takes over and just starts like putting you where you belong, and all these things like start to fall into place. And it's been super scary. It still gets really scary, as we were talking about this morning, you know, when I can't see around the next bend, or I can't see how it's going to work out, and then all that conditioning comes in again. And my open centers are the root, the sacral, and the emotional, so it feels very much like I'm not doing enough, and I'm not doing it fast enough, and I'm hurting everybody all the time, you know. And I have to constantly unhook from that. But it's just, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And and the energy healings around it help so much, because you come into like energetic alignment with what's actually happening here, and it gets so much easier to advocate for who you really are and communicate with people in your life and being like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, and let me tell you why. You know, like, here's who I am. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. I just found out. So it's cool. It really opens up a lot of opportunities, I think.
That's amazing.
It's really cool. It's taken off, this human design stuff. It's fun. Thanks for letting me share it with you.
You're
Thanks for
welcome. Thank you so much
interest.
for being willing to do that. Like, I know I just like kind of threw this at you. Like,
I
bam!
love it. I love it. I literally sit here and wait for invitations, so that's what I need. Yeah.
Me too. So yeah, apparently. So absolutely. I so appreciate
Yeah.
taking
And
the
you're doing it, Becca. Like everything that you've been sharing in our other calls, and you know, you're doing, even without knowing this about yourself. I mean, you did know. You just hadn't heard it in this exact language, but like you're really aware of those things. But I do hear those hooks too, you know, the hook of like, can I leave this job? You know, what do I have to prove? Will I be safe? Those sorts of things. Yeah.
Straight up. Oh,
Yeah. And so you can just keep coming back to your strategy and authority.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that today and be
Yeah.
here with us. And
Thank you.
I'm going to put the resources for Miss Allyson below. And please, if you feel called, reach out to her. She's amazing at what she does, if you didn't just see that here right now. And she
Thanks,
definitely,
Becca.
open for readings and all of that stuff. So I urge you to contact her if it feels right
Yeah,
for you.
awesome. And I offer sliding scale for people that are struggling and people of color.
Very nice. Oh, perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Allyson.
Yeah, thanks, Becca.